truck kind of guy. And so I told a bunch of friends, like, I would never, ever have a minivan. And so that was just like, just laid it out, and I was pretty staunch about it. I was like, listen, I'm never, ever going to drive a minivan. So then, growing up, I had friends, they got married, started having kids, and they'd end up with minivans. And I would be known to mock them from time to time for their minivans and just make fun. And they'd say, oh, your time's coming. And I would say things like, it's going to be a cold day in a hot place before I drive a minivan. And they would say, nope, you're going to have kids, you're going to get it. And I was like, no. Like, that is a prereq for anybody I marry. They can't like minivans. And that was a conversation Lori and I had earlier when we were dating. Just, I kind of wanted to gauge her interest and found out that she disliked minivans. So I just had this dislike for minivans. And then I had the opportunity to come interview at First Christian Church, Montana in Lewistown. So I came up here, got up here, and one of the things, I don't know which elder, but one of the elders told me, so hey, one of the things that comes with your position is you get to drive the church minivan. And, I'm not going to lie, my first thought was not, yes, where's the dotted line so I can sign? So, but then they said, hey, we want you to, if you're going to be our pastor, when you're here, we want you to drive the minivan because it's got the church sign on the side. It's good advertising. And if you drive it around town here or for church business, then we'll pay for the gas. So I thought, well, financially that makes sense. Looks like I'm driving a minivan. So now I drive the minivan. We've kind of made up, we don't have quite as much of a hate-hate relationship as we have. But that minivan is not what I would call an off-road vehicle. And I kind of have this just like this, I don't know if it's like this goal or what, but I like to drive the minivan. Like even if there's a little bit of snow on the road, I'm like, nope, I'm driving the minivan now. We're just going to get through it. So there was a day last year, I don't know if you guys remember last winter, but there was a fairly significant amount of snow. And there was one day where I was driving down, I think I was coming down Water, and I was just trying to get back up to the church. I think I was at Water and 14th. And so at the bottom of the hill, I was driving along, and it was that day where it had started to melt, so it was kind of that slushy, nasty stuff. And there was a car coming, so I stopped, and they went by, and then I started to go again, and just did not go anywhere. Just sat there, and then so, put it down at first, still didn't go anywhere. It didn't have a shovel in the van, got out, kicked under the tires, and tried again, and just, I was not going anywhere. But did not want to call for help because, darn it, I was not going to call for somebody to come push me out of the minivan. So I'm sitting there trying to go somewhere and just not happening at all. And then actually, I think it was Bobby Potts pulled up behind me and comes up and, ask that question, you need help? And you always like, everybody knows the answer. And you ask that just to find out if the guy's going to actually be honest about it. I was like, yeah, I think so. And it was great because right after that, Pete, the UPS driver, pulled up. And Pete gets out and goes, oh my goodness, you church people just never know how to drive your vans. Or something, or not church people, he said, you pastors just don't know how to drive your vans. He's like, move over, let me drive it out. So then Bobby and I pushed, and Pete drove it, and we got it out, got it going, and Pete still to this day brings it up pretty often when I see him, just as a reminder, hey, you remember that time you couldn't drive your minivan and I had to drive it for you? Yeah, Pete, vaguely, I still remember that, But there's that time where you're stuck, where like no matter what you do, like you're not getting out on your own. And no matter how much you don't want to call for help, and no matter how much when Bobby walks up and says, hey, do you need help? You want to go, nope, I got this, I'm good. Like he knows that's a lie, I know that's a lie, and it's just getting to that point of saying, you know what, yes, I need help here. This is something that I can't do on my own, and I need a push. I need something to get me going again. That is maybe, I think, the core lesson of today is just getting that through our minds that there's nothing that we can do. We are those people in that minivan, in the snow, in the intersection, where sooner or later, we all have to come to that realization that, you know what, I can't do it on my own. That there's nothing that I can do to fix my eternal state. That there's nothing on my own that I can do to fix my spiritual standing with God. And that no matter how bad I want it, no matter how bad I try, no matter how much I kick snow out from in front of the tires and will myself forward, that there's a point at which there's got to be that humility and got to be that acknowledgement that, you know what, I can't do this and I need some outside help. So we're in the last two letters in Revelation 3 today. And so we've been in this series for a number of weeks. where we've looked at the churches in Revelation. And we remember Revelation, it's this apocalyptic literature. So it's written to these people that are in crisis that don't have hope. And the whole message of Revelation is that there's hope, is that if we hang on long enough, that God always wins in the end. God's faithful, and as long as we hang on, as long as we stay faithful, that we're going to persevere and our eternity is going to be with him. So then we remember Revelation, it's most of Revelation 4 through 22 is symbolic. Almost all of it is, where it's all these big word pictures to kind of explain the spiritual battle and things that threaten Christianity. And the whole message of Revelation is really that there's going to be these things come along that look a little bit like Jesus. And they don't threaten Christianity, like it's not like they're a threat to God. Because when you read about the battle that ends things in Revelation 19, it's not really a battle. It's not like two equal sides coming together. It's a massacre. It's like these forces of evil line up against Jesus, and then they just go away. Like it's not any sort of a fight or this equal or like equals coming together. It's these forces of evil that line up against Jesus and then just disappear because they don't stand a chance. But the threat to Christianity is when Christians see these things that look a little bit like Jesus, or that promise what Jesus has to offer. And then we end up buying into those things instead of buying into Jesus. The term is called a parody, right? Where it's something that it's not the real thing, but it looks a little bit like the real thing. And the whole message of Revelation then is, hey, if we hang on, God wins in the end, there's hope, and so don't fall for the fake thing. And so today we're going to read over the letter, and we remember John wrote these letters to 7 different churches, and each church had like a particular thing that they were wrestling with. And so today we're going to read the letter to the church in Philadelphia and then the church in Laodicea. But first, we remember that kind of this foundation is built on this passage in Revelation 1, 5, and 6, and where this theme comes through already that we're not sufficient on our own. This is what John writes, Revelation 1, 5, and 6. To him who loves us and has freed us from our sins by his blood. So clearly this reference to Jesus, what he did for us. Jesus made us a kingdom. He made us priests to his God and Father. To Jesus be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. And that's the foundation where it's not we did something, but it's Jesus did this for us. Jesus put us in this position to succeed. So now we get through it. We read letters to Ephesus and Pergamum and Thyatira and Sardis, and I'm leaving one out that I'm blanking. And then we get to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is this little town. And so Philadelphia, of all the letters, Philadelphia is probably the smallest or one of the smallest cities. And it's not really known for anything special. Like Philadelphia wasn't like a rich town. It wasn't a politically influential town. It was kind of like the inferior town to all the rest. It was like maybe had a little bit of like the little sibling syndrome, that feels like, man, I'm just not quite as big as any of these other towns around me. And Philadelphia was a place where whatever the church was doing, they were doing it right, because Philadelphia is one of only 2 churches here that weren't critiqued for anything. So let's read through. Let's see what Jesus has to say. And they will learn that I have loved you. So this is a message in the synagogue of Satan, people who think they're Jews, but they're not. Back in those days, about the only way that Christians would be persecuted or be arrested was if they were betrayed by somebody. And so the Jewish synagogues were pretty well known for betraying Christians, because from the Jewish perspective, Christianity was not a real religion because they didn't recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So all these Christians would come up, and so the Jewish synagogue then would turn Christians into the authorities. And so Jesus is saying, hey, like, these folks that are turning you in, they're going to learn the truth. Verse 10, because you have kept my word about patient endurance, I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world, to try those who dwell on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. The one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it, and I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down from my God out of heaven, and my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. writes to this church in Philadelphia, and just message is pretty simple. He says, look, life's tough. Hang in there, because if you hang in there, eternity is waiting for you. And this is the first blank on your bulletin. So if you're filling out the outline, the first one is this. Being a Christian means that I am inadequate on my own. Being a Christian means that I am inadequate on my own. And this letter really does two things. First, it reminds the people of Philadelphia that, hey, like, you're not powerful. And you know, some of us don't like to hear that. Like, some of us don't like to hear, hey, you can't do it on your own. And some of us, like, kind of push back to that and say, well, wait, I mean, I do pretty well on my own, and I know I need Jesus, but I can do pretty well with that. And part of the message that Jesus says to Philadelphia, it's not really a backhanded compliment, but he goes, hey, I know you guys aren't very powerful, and that's true. And he says, but that's okay because I am, and you need to hang on. I think the second lesson that we get from the church in Philadelphia is just this, is that sometimes you can do everything right and things still don't work out the way that you want them to. You know, there's no critique for this church in Philadelphia. Like, Jesus has nothing but good things to say about it. And yet, this church is still facing persecution and hardship. And man, some of us get in that boat, right? I mean, some of us have done everything right. You know, some of us have followed Jesus for a long time, have lived obedient and faithful lives, been good husbands, good wives, good parents. And then we look and we're still in the middle of financial difficulty, or we still have medical issues that we didn't do anything to deserve. And in fact, we did everything right, and there's this question, why does